Humanity's like an animal suspended in a spider web of its own making. And that web is a web of meaning, significance. Now, I didn't come up with that. That comes from Clifford Geertz, a teacher of anthropology, in his book, The Interpretation of Cultures. The exact quote goes, humanity, he says man, but I prefer to use humanity when referring to all of mankind. Humanity is like an animal suspended in webs of significance that the animal itself has spun. I take culture to be that web. Now, if you have the gist of the quote, this is what I often do with it when I'm in a class and I need to make this connection pretty quickly. I ask folks, tell me what you know about spider webs. What do they do? What are their functions? What's your experience with them? Folks start going, oh, they're sticky. Oh, they're invisible. Oh, they're creepy. Oh, they're for predators. Oh, no, they're for prey. Their transportation, they are a habitation. I had a fellow in one class, I was doing this, he studied spiders, and he said, you can tell what kind of web it is, what kind of spider it is by virtue of its web. Its patterns signify something of its identity. So it has an aesthetic and an identification quality. If you were to continue on for another 30 minutes, probing the features of what a web means and what it does and what it looks like, and just absorb the meaning of web, then you could come down to what Geertz was insisting when he says, I take culture to be those webs of significance. In other words, we are sense-making beings. We're discriminating beings. We're always deciding, does this concern me? Does it not concern me? How does it concern me? And how do I want to rightly relate to it? That's what love does. Love is that discriminating capacity in us that says, mine, yours, it, thou, I want it, don't want it. But it's this discriminating function, this valuing reflex that we have. And what we set our affection on, we set our gaze upon, as if we sustain it, becomes love. It will begin to have a fundamentally controlling influence upon us. Okay, well, we talked about that earlier. What's Geertz talking about with this web, and what's West talking about by making love a part of it? We shape our worlds. Now, let me bring another quote into play. Michael Gerber, in his book, The E-Myth, said this: your organization is perfectly designed to get the results that it's getting. Think about that. Your organization, the ones that you have been describing to us inside of the VoiceThread jams and the stories that we've been talking through, your organization is perfectly designed to be getting those results. If you're getting great results, if you like the results, if the results meet the standard of what you're after, your culture is perfectly designed to get the results that you're getting. I mean, your organization to get the results that you're getting. If you don't like the results, or you're surprised by the results, or the results are uneven, your organization is perfectly designed to get the results you're getting. Now, the question for you, and maybe it's a theological one for a lot of people, is what kind of agency do you have to participate in the shaping of culture? Depending on your model of organizational culture and your models of culture, you may find yourself in kind of a paralytic relationship with the organization's culture, with the belief that culture is monolithic. It is what it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's the old ham-pan preacher's story that people have heard for years. I'm sure you've used it at some point. Mom, the three generations together, the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter, and they're making some feast or something, and the discussion the youngest of the three generations asks, as she's shaving a bone, a ham bone, to make it fit inside of this pan, Mom, why do we shave the bone off of the ham? Why can't we just leave it? And she said, that's a really good question. And she turns to her mom. She's like, I've always done it that way. Mom, why do we do that? She looks back at the grandmother, looks back at both of them and says, Well, I don't know why you two are doing it, but I did it because my pan was only that size. We've heard that before. And we come to find out that culture comes to us in layers. And it comes to us in artifacts. The most outer layer are the form with which we begin to encounter the organization. So I'm holding up something in front of you here. I'll try to hold it close enough that you can get some of its texture and its shape. If I were to ask you, form, what is this form? You may begin to say, well, let me just start listing some things. It looks like it's stone or petrified wood. I can't tell. I'd have to inspect that closer, Russ. It's black or dark gray in color, slate colors. You may have some language to get more precise. It looks like it may be stratiated, like it's layered or stacked and compressed in some sort of way. There are flecks and indentations in it that could have meaning. But you might say it's kidney shaped, or it's like the shape of the letter D, but if I ask you its form, you may come up with all of those descriptive features that are observable. If I ask you what its function is, you conclude it's a stone or a piece of petrified wood or glass that has taken on this sort of shape. If I ask you, what do you do with it? What's it for? What can you do with it? You might start listing some things. You can say, well, I'd get a few more and I'd set a pot on it and I'd make an oven out of it. Or I would get a bunch of these and I'd lay them inside of a pathway, put some sand in them, and I'd make a walkway with them. Or this is a weapon. I use that to keep the bears away when I'm camping. But you can begin to generate functionality of how this thing may come into place. I put these inside of a wall with some mortar, and it becomes I crush it, and I use the coloring inside of this for paint. Depending on the nature of this thing, you could come up with all sorts of functions. But form, function, meaning, what does this mean? There's only one way you can get that answer. You'd have to ask me, right? That's the only way you're going to know what this means to me. Now, you may have decided, no, it means this. It means something sentimental to him. And you may seek to, but you still won't know that unless you do something that confirms what you've experienced from the outer layer of this, the way it shows up in a situation, which would be a functional layer of this, and then its value in terms of what I, as a discriminating being who may have assigned value, attributed value to this, you're going to have to ask me. Okay, let's talk about culture audit. Let's start with the assumption that you have observed the culture that you intend to describe to us, that you know it from its external furniture features and can describe that. Take a look at the document that I supplied regarding hospitality executives in the culture audit, and you will see a whole series of units of analysis that are physical in nature. Parking lots, steeples on buildings, organs, lots of pipes, velvet, and an offering plate the size of a roaster pan. Those are observable things around some people's places. What are the functions of things that have steeples on them? In downtown Norfolk, there's a great restaurant called Freemason Abbey, and it's got a steeple on it. For years, when I was new to the faith, I was so offended. It's like, I'll never eat in Freemason Abbey. When I thought as a child, I acted as a child. As I grew older, it's like, well, nobody else was eating in that place spiritually, so why not get some real food out of it? So my views changed, and I had some great meals in Freemason Abbey. Well, just because it has a steeple on it doesn't mean that I should conclude that it's a place of worship. Even if it has a steeple on it, and you go inside and there's a bunch of folks doing lots of things that look like the liturgy, it still doesn't mean that it's a place of worship. Just because the physical form and there are some functions that are being sequenced and choreographed don't mean that we're down to what these things yet mean, does it? The only way we're going to know what these things mean if we come across a group that's got a big steeple, we come into their space and they've got these practices of standing and kneeling and singing from books together and on and on and on and on, is we're going to have to ask them what that stuff means. And be careful. A lot of folks don't know why they do what they do. Don't ask them why they do it. They can't always tell you. Little Lucy in the Chronicles of Narnia meets a faun, Mr. Tumnus. And as they meet, and just a few feet outside of the wardrobe in the iciness of Narnia, its freshness, she extends her hand to this faun who's got a package under his arm, is on an errand. And the faun looks at her, Lucy Pevensey from wardrobe, and asks, "What am I to do with that?" She says, "Well, you shake it. You take it and you shake it," extending a hand of greeting. And he goes, Why? And Lucy says, I don't really know, because she's a child, right? So people don't always know why they do what they do. So as we begin to chain out this data collection process and gather things from folks, just know people may be doing something which has incredible meaning to them, but be unable to articulate the whys behind it. They may not have theological answers for why they come to church or are doing what you think that they're doing. But becoming curious, figuring out how they think about it, what they see from their perspective, what they feel, what they do as it pertains to the community that you're a part of or what you've become curious about, is going to require you to cultivate a questioning frame of mind, a kind of curiosity that is the embodiment of humility. For me to say, I don't know what that means to you. Can you teach me you? This is the beginning of empathy. This is the beginning of community's power, is that it can become a place where people get known. And rather than something being imposed upon them because someone has decided that they're going to save fish from drowning, someone from Breathing World has got a redemptive complex and they're going to save the fish from drowning, but they don't understand fish. They don't understand what a good day for a fish is, because you're going to have to kind of get in their world and ask them. You're going to have to do it in their language, from their view. So what is a culture audit, and what is Wes asking me to do right now, and what will we do in the fall? I want you to think of this in terms of steps and stages. The first task is for you to do an audit as one of the community participants that probably has a fairly distinct role in the community. So that's where the exercise I've supplied for the summer changed things from what had been in last year's syllabus and have pushed that to the fall, since we don't have a Korea trip to have done all these things together with. We pushed that to the fall. But we are building now here in the summer around your value, your perspective, your congruence. Leader is, leader does, community is, community does. So it's now time to put that to the test. So what I want to ask you to do is to take the form that I've given you, the question sets, there's 5 of them. What do we want to stop? What do we want to start? What do we want to keep? What's okay to do around here? What's not okay to do around here? Those 5 questions. And for you to find a stance that you re-enter your community and start doing the work of these 3 layers of the onion, where you get some sense of what is the physical furniture of our cultural space? What is its functional reality? And then what do things mean, and to whom do they mean what they mean? Well, you've got to do your part in this, because in the fall, we're going to press into those questions, asking wider and wider circles of members in your community how they relate to what's being done there, what's trying to be achieved there. As you move towards a service redesign, you'll choose one service next fall, in the fall, that becomes a candidate for of a change or a design. It doesn't have to be a grand, significant one, but if you want it to be, it just needs to fit inside of the semester. It can be a fairly minor thing. You want to get a policy established, or you want to get it heard with your board. You're going to carry it through various phases, but it's going to be based on the service design change will be the byproduct of a learning process in which the community told you, these are our priorities around this community and around that particular change. And you're going to approach it from the perspective of, what am I seeing? So let's take this, this example. You do a lot of work to bring folks as visitors to your community. And they all come and they have a wonderful time, it seems. They laugh at the right times, they clap at the right times, they stand at the right times, they sit at the right times. Surely they'll be back. But 3 weeks later, you can find hide nor hair of them. You've got like a revolving door of all this effort to get folks through the door, but you don't keep them, you don't assimilate them. And that's become a puzzle to you. That's become a kind of phenomenon. It's like, how could you give so much effort and it not yield much retention and fruit? What are we doing wrong? And so all of these theories get spun, and people get their anxieties kicked in, and you got to do your Edwin Friedman stuff on the community. So we get real problems around our places, right? And I'm wanting you to choose one of those areas that you think could be improved upon by some prophetic imagination or some apostolic reimagination, some sentness, love. So you pick a candidate. You say, we're going to redo the kids' place around here. We're going to make sure that when parents check in kids, they know that we're COVID smart. They know that we've considered all the political positions and that we have found a way to navigate these things and build community through them. It's signaling the message that we do safety here all times. It's one of our values. And we work that value out through the following postures. We ask our team to do these things. We work these things out through the following practices. Our teams do these things on a regular basis around this issue. And the following projects. We've purchased one of these. It will do this to the air conditioning system. Sorry, I've had some things come on my screen here while filming. This is my third attempt at this with technology making this difficult. So let me see if I can get this finished up. But you organize your search in such a way that you begin to observe what is going on around this place. But I say you go first, and it's important for you to have gone through at least this much of it, because when you begin facilitating answers from folks, you're going to have to awaken them to a questioning frame of mind, becoming observers, and inviting more and more people into concentric circles of invitation, of feedback, so that when it's time to do the design work, you've got the confidence of what a community would say to you around what's important to them. So that's all we're asking you to do, is get confident around this whole thing with the self-audit, so that you can facilitate and you know what you're looking for and can become a facilitator of the data collection that's coming in the fall. In the fall, our work will shift to more of a community-based thing. It'll have 3 steps to it. You will do another culture mapping, but this will be a more simple one, just kind of 4 categories that you'll ask your community to give you feedback in. You may do this through interviews, you may do focus groups, you might do a survey, but you'll collect it from 4 units of analysis. The next project you'll do will be called empathy mapping. That is and I've supplied these documents down below, that is the document where you fill in these 4 spaces which ask the question, what is my client, my customer, my member, what are they experiencing from the position of their hearing, their seeing, their thinking, and their doing? These are all at the observable level, not your interpretation of what you think they think, or what you think they're saying, or what you think they know, or what you think you do, but what you're being on the scene, observing them, asking them, interviewing them, letting them give you a chance to explain what it's like to be them or to experience the place from their point of view, the things that they think ought to start and stop and keep, what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. You want to get them talking about this in a place that explains their point of view as the spider making the web, how they contribute to the web, what it means to them. So before you go changing designs around there, be careful to find out what you're changing. I believe it's Psalm 11, I believe it is. It says, if the foundations be destroyed, what will the righteous do? The foundations. It's talking about if you move the milestones on a road or between a piece of property that says this is apples and this is pine trees on this side, if you move these things around, then people won't know where the standard is anymore. Well, if you start moving the organ around or start moving the American flag that's been in that church's on that church's stage since those veterans of 1945 placed it there as a sacred shrine. If you don't know what all that stuff means and you just start tweaking and tinkering and messing with it, you may find yourself violating something that's called the social contract. So you're going to see a document down inside of our course space and some media around the social contract. You may find that you're experiencing a kind of blindness, and this is where I evoke Barry Oshry in terms of tops, middles, bottoms, and clients, and the various blindness and the blind dance between them. So we'll get Barry Oshry part 2 on the big system. Cohesion, organizational citizenship. These are some of the themes I want to introduce to you as we begin thinking through the transition from the concerns about what a self is inside of an organization and what supervisors are and what systems are, where all this cultural stuff starts filling in, where all the departmental stuff starts kicking in, and then what the strategy is. I'm going to introduce a concept called the high fidelity organization in a video piece and with a PowerPoint that accompanies it that describes the PACE model of organizational management, diagnostics, and communication. This is a tool that I've developed to give folks pretty quick language that they can bring lots of folks up to speed on some organizational furniture and give more and more people right to participate in how the organization is shaped and where the furniture lays. So you'll see several pieces that support your readiness to begin doing the culture audit work. And then in our last phase of things, we're going to be talking about how do you do the interventions that move into strategy of getting things done to get the organization shaped in the way that that community thinks serves it best. Okay, well, so culture audit. I want you to form, function, meaning, start at one end of your community, the same gate that everybody else comes in, and walk through it like you were a stranger and behold an organization you may have never seen before. I'll see you in the classroom.